Hi everyone. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about, it's going to end up being three different fairy tale figures. Um, I'm not exactly sure how to conceptualize them. They're they're probably best thought of as reflections of of goddess. Um, it can also be just viewed as um, fairy tale beings. They can also be viewed as like um, archetypal images, but I suppose the best way to think about them is different faces or different reflections of goddess. Um, so, Ice Maiden, I'll start out with her, is very closely associated with the Snow Queen. They are not said to be the same being, but they're almost like sisters, or they occupy. Sorry about that. I have a dog that doesn't like my computer right now. Um, they're kind of, they can either be viewed as like sisters or beings that occupy similar spaces, so that they are related to each other, but they are not the same kind of being. Okay, the Snow Queen has an interest in children. She has an interest in, well, I covered her already, but just to go over really quickly, she's very rationally minded, very logical, she wants people to see things as very clearly as they are in a rational, logical, analytical sense. Um, and she's also, there's a bit of loneliness to her. Um, she doesn't have a consort that I am aware of. She is a single uh, maiden goddess figure, um, and she shares that with the Ice Maiden. Except the Ice Maiden seems to me to be a lot younger. Um, the Snow Queen is a queen. She is a mature or almost mature young woman. She's not a mother. She doesn't have her own children. Um, she's sort of a shadowy, darker version of Mrs. Claus, okay? Of the pair, Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus. She's sort of the darker version of Mrs. Claus. I think that's probably the best way that I can put it if I'm gonna relate her to somebody who's familiar to most of us. Um, yeah. So if the Snow Queen is the darker version of Mrs. Claus, or the 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 grandmother figure, um, then the Ice Maiden is even the darker version of the Snow Queen. Okay. She lives not in an ice castle like the Snow Queen does, but she is surrounded by ice. She lives in crevasses of icy mountain passes, of um, snow-covered mountains, okay? Very dangerous places. She lives in the bottom of them, so she is something of an underworld figure. Um, she is probably, well, the way that I read the fairy tale, which is by Hans Christian Andersen, it's called not the snow, the Ice Maiden. The Snow Maiden is separate from the Ice Maiden too. Um, I'm going to cover her too. The Ice Maiden seems to me to be a very young girl. She's kind of like, she's the Dark Maiden, okay? Um, but the young girl, while the Snow Queen is a young woman, but more mature. Okay, the Ice Maiden is very, very, very lonely. Okay, and she is said to entice or to otherwise trick people into falling into crevasses and basically staying with her in her realm. So she's definitely an underworld figure, a figure of um, of of a in charge of the realm of the dead. I'll just say that, okay? I'll just say it straight out. Because generally, if you fall into a large crevasse in the ice and snow on top of a remote mountain, that's a very dangerous place. Lots of people, certainly in the past, even in the present, lots of people die from falling into such places. So she's dangerous because she's very, very lonely, and there's this sort of almost childlike quality to her loneliness, that she wants friends, she wants people around her, and she's because of where she lives, she's very much alone. So it's a very sad, tragic story for pretty much everybody involved. Um, she is kind of like the mermaids, the sirens, that kind of being that will lure you into, say, the ocean or the bottom of a lake or the bottom of a well, um, because they're lonely, because they they want someone with them. She's like that. And I don't know what else I want to say about her. Um, she's the darker aspect of the Snow Queen, who is much more peaceful, much more calm, much more logical and rational about being alone. They are both lonely figures, but the Ice Maiden is much more dangerous. Okay, um, then she's completely different from the Snow Maiden. The Snow Maiden was a created being. By that I mean, you might have heard the fairy tale before, I don't know, so I'm just going to summarize it really quickly. A very old couple, husband and wife, um, never were able to have children. They love each other very much, but what they regret most is not ever having had children. Okay? And they're talking one night about this, and it's the middle of winter, and they are just very sad about never having had children, never having had um, anybody to take care of, and they feel kind of lonely. So they decide that they're going to go outside, and they make from the snow that's fallen outside, because it's the middle of winter, they make a snow girl, a snow maiden, okay? And they're very, very careful about it. They take their time, and they really fashion a figure out of snow that looks like a little girl, and they give her um, bits of clothing. They really put together a figure of a little girl. So it's not like a snowman that's, like 3 balls of snow. They take their time. They're very specific about what she looks like and all of that kind of thing. They do it very lovingly, and with care. And then they go back inside, and the I believe it's the woman makes a wish, and if any of the fair folk happen to hear you make a wish, you may get what you wish for, um, in a very interesting way. Um, so what happens is when they wake up the next morning, there is the Snow Maiden outside, and she's alive, okay, but she is still made out of snow, so she can't come inside, because inside they have their fireplace and it's warm, and you know, snow is not good. So the Snow Maiden has to stay outside for however long she lives, for the rest of her life. She cannot go inside the house. It's really sad too, but there's a lot more fun to that folk tale than there is to the Ice Maiden. The Ice Maiden is just really tragic. The Snow Maiden is more about mystery and transformation and magic. Not so much about peril and danger and that sort of thing. Um, so they create the Snow Maiden from the snow. The Snow Maiden is transformed. Um, Sometimes it's like a sort of fairy godmother figure that does this. Sometimes it's the Snow Queen herself. Sometimes it's really not explained how it happens. Sometimes it's a kind of white bird, so that's representative of goddess energy. Um, it's just variously, there is some magical kind of transformation that goes on, and she becomes a real maiden, but she's still made out of snow. Um, for anybody who knows, you know, Pinocchio, it's that sort of thing, where Pinocchio is animate, but he's still made out of wood, and he's still a puppet. Um, so she can never go inside, and I'm not sure. There are two different ways that the story ends. Either she just decides that it's time to go inside, and she does melt, and as she melts, she turns into a flesh and blood little girl, or she stays outside for a long, long time, and um, in her old age, or when summer comes around, then she begins to melt, and she either um, returns to where she came from, the other world, because she is an other world being, she's a magical being, or she does turn into a flesh and blood, um, either older woman or like yeah, an older woman, okay, and then she dies as a flesh and blood older woman. So there's still some sadness to it, but it's a lot more satisfying to me. The completion is much more natural than with the Ice Maiden. Okay, so okay, yeah. Lastly, I'm sorry, I'm going through these really quickly. I'm going to talk about the Flower Maiden, or when I looked this up, because I know that there are many different stories about feminine figures, or little girls, or yeah, girls, women, feminine figures made from flowers, or so highly associated with flowers that they're like connected to them. Um, Thumbelina is one of those. She is born out of the blossom of a poppy seed. Um, the most famous flower maiden is Flower Face, who how do I say her name? Bleowith? Bleowith? No. She's a goddess, or she's variously depicted as like a flower nymph. She's definitely a magical being. She was created by two magicians, two sorcerers, two magical people. They both men, so wise men. Um, Bleowith, 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 Bleowith. Yeah, Bleowith. Okay, I think that's how you say it. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I've heard her name said so many different ways. But okay, she is made from either 3 or 9 different kinds of flowers. Now, I don't remember all the 9 flowers, but I remember 3 of them. Broom, um, as in the witch's broom. Um, Meadowsweet, I really like Meadowsweet. It's really highly associated with fair queens, and I would definitely consider the Flower Maiden a fair queen. Um, I believe oak, hawthorn too. So that's 4. Let me see if I can't remember. Um, no, I can't remember the rest of them. But there are 9 or 3, which are goddess numbers. Um, and she is she's brought to life as a woman made out of flowers, which I think is really beautiful. Um, and then later, it's a sad story what happens, because she is specifically created to be the consort to someone that she does not necessarily feel that kind of connection to. Um, Her life path is pretty much set out for her without any input from her, without any say so on her part. So it's really sad. And then she falls in love with someone else who she was not meant for, and it ends pretty badly. And in the end, she attempts to have the man, or the god that she was meant for, killed. But you can't kill a god, so that doesn't work out. And she gets punished because it's pretty serious what she did, but she was really just trying to live the way she wanted to, as far as I can tell. And then she is eventually turned into an owl, um, which if you I think, I'm not exactly sure which kind of owl. It's probably the barn owl. But the full face of an owl, um, and it's associated. Well, not associated. It's compared to the full face of a blooming flower. So flower face becomes the owl, um, and the name the name carries over. Okay, whether she is in her owl form or in her flower maiden form. Not sure if I'm making any sense, but there are different levels of transformation that are going on in each of the stories. Um, Particularly with the Snow Maiden and Flower Maiden. The way that the Flower Maiden story was told to me was that this Flower Maiden is made out of flowering dogwood, which is a very intense red color. Um, I believe she's basically uh, pink flowers, red flowers, and yellow flowers. So she's sunflowers, yeah, sunflowers, flowering dogwood, um, hawthorn, which is not, just kind of a white, but it's still like big blooming flowers. Um, so when you think of just the rounded shape of a big bloom, and the rounded shape of an owl's face. That's that kind of idea. Okay, so I think, wow, yeah, I think I'm done. Um, I'm going to be doing videos on the fair queens now, or the fairy queens. Uh, Bledwith, Bledo, I don't know how to say her name really. Let me try this again. Bledwith? Sorry. Um, is a fair queen. The Snow Queen is a fair queen. So, since I've been talking about fair queens, I'm going to continue to talk about fair queens in other videos coming up. But first, I have promised someone that I will do a video on the fair folk and crystals. I know that I did one before, but it wasn't specifically, I was showing off my crystals mostly, but it wasn't specifically about fair folk and crystals. So I'm going to make that video probably tomorrow, and I'm thinking about making a video showing you some of my sacred tools, some of my altar items. I'm not going to show you my altar specifically because it's kind of a private area for me, but I'll probably show you like some of the different items that I have on my altar, and I'll take them off. I'll take them off and show them to you on video, and then I'll put them back. I think that was all I wanted to say. Yeah, I think so. Next video, next video is going to probably be about the crystals, and then I might actually put the tools in the same video. And then, eventually, 2 or 3 or 4 videos from now, I will do a series on the fair queens, or the fairy queens. Okay, I'm going to say bye now, and all stars shine on your paths. All stars shine on your paths.